The Sinaloa cartel thought they'd found an easy mark. A quiet horse ranch nestled in the Arizona desert, run by a retired police sergeant. The property straddled a lucrative trafficking corridor, and its owner, Sarah Mitchell, seemed nothing more than a former mounted patrol officer trying to make a peaceful living breeding horses. It should have been straightforward, but in the world of law enforcement, nothing is ever what it appears. The morning sun crept over the Sonoran desert, painting the sky in brilliant shades of crimson and gold. Tumbleweeds Ranch sprawled across 60 acres of rugged terrain, its buildings arranged in a precise formation that spoke of tactical awareness rather than conventional ranch design. A magnificent black Frisian stallion named Thunder led Sarah Mitchell along the fence line, his hooves striking the dusty ground with deliberate precision. Sarah's fingers traced the weathered wooden posts as she walked, her movements reflecting years of police training. The desert air carried the sounds of horses awakening, not the casual whinnies of ordinary ranch stock, but the disciplined responses of animals trained to work alongside law enforcement. "Morning, boss," called Marcus Rodriguez as he emerged from the training arena, his police badge glinting in the early light. "Thunder's looking sharp today. He knows we've got new arrivals coming." "How's our patient from yesterday?" Sarah asked, adjusting her worn Police Academy baseball cap. "That retired mount from Phoenix PD." "The bay gelding? Coming along well." Marcus fell into step beside them. "But we need to discuss the fence on the west property line. Third breach this month." Sarah's expression hardened slightly. "Again? Show me." Near the compromise section, Elena Santos, a former tactical mounted unit instructor, worked with a young Andalusian, maintaining the appearance of routine training while surveying the surroundings. 20 yards away, Jack Cooper examined fresh cuts in the metal fencing, his weathered hands tracing the clean edges of the wire. "They're getting bolder," Jack muttered as Sarah and Marcus approached. Thunder's ears pricked forward, alert but composed. "These cuts are professional. Wire tensioned before cutting to prevent noise." Sarah ran her fingers over the damaged fence. "Height of the cuts?" "Truck height," Elena added, keeping her voice low as she guided the Andalusian through a series of precise movements. "They're testing us, seeing how we respond, or seeing if we notice at all," Jack interjected, his years as a border patrol agent evident in his assessment. A distant engine sound drew their attention. A black SUV passed slowly along the public road, its occupants barely visible behind tinted windows. Sarah's hand instinctively moved to where her service weapon used to rest. "Elena, move the morning training sessions to the East Arena," Sarah directed, her voice steady. "Jack, I want you to check every inch of this fence line, but make it look like routine maintenance." "Already on it," Jack responded, but his voice carried a note of concern. "Sarah, we both know they're not just passing through anymore." Sarah placed a hand on Thunder's neck, feeling the subtle tension in the horse's muscles. "No, they're not." She paused, considering their options. "Marcus, call Sheriff Rivera. Tell her we've had another fence cutting, but keep it casual. We don't want to show our hand yet." In the ranch office, law enforcement precision reflected in every detail, maps marked with patrol routes, schedules meticulously organized, surveillance photos carefully catalogued. Dr. Amy Chen reviewed the weekly veterinary reports with Sarah, who sat behind her desk while Thunder stood vigilant by the window. 4 new horses arriving next week, Dr. Chen noted, adjusting her glasses. 2 from San Diego Mounted Unit, 1 from Las Vegas Metro, and a retired Border Patrol horse. The Border Patrol horse. That's Agent Ramirez's partner? Yes, forced. Retirement due to a leg injury, but with proper rehabilitation. Sheriff Rivera entered, her expression carefully neutral, but her body language spoke volumes. Sarah got a minute. After Dr. Chen left, the sheriff gestured to the empty chair. West fence cutting, among other things, she began. We've had reports of unusual activity all along this stretch. Property damage, suspicious vehicles, missing livestock from other ranches. She paused, choosing her words carefully. The pattern suggests cartel expansion. They're looking for new routes, Sarah finished, and my ranch sits on prime real estate. Sheriff Rivera leaned forward, her voice dropping. Sarah, if you're having problems, nothing we can't handle, Maria. Sarah's voice carried quiet confidence. But keep your eyes open. Something tells me this is just the beginning. As the sun hung low over the ranch, Elena worked with a group of mounted patrol officers and their horses. Commands rang out in multiple languages: English, Spanish, German, a legacy of international police training programs. Sarah stood at the edge of the arena, watching the controlled chaos with experienced eyes. Jack approached with deliberate steps, his expression grim. Perimeter checks done. Found something you should know about. Tell me. Fresh boot prints by the North Wash. Military-grade tactical boots. These aren't just random fence cutters anymore. Sarah nodded slowly, her hand resting on Thunder's neck. The stallion's ears were forward, alert, but not alarmed. In the distance, the training continued. Commands, responses, the synchronized movement of officers and horses. Get everyone together after dinner, Sarah said finally. It's time we had a talk about ranch security. Night settled over Tumbleweeds Ranch, the buildings glowing softly in the darkness. In the shadows between, sharp eyes watched, both human and equine, ready for whatever the night might bring. The ranch's common room held a different energy after sunset. 8 people gathered around the heavy oak table, steaming coffee mugs before them. Sarah sat at the head, Thunder visible through the window, standing guard. Let's not dance around it, Sarah began, her fingers tracing the rim of her untouched coffee. We've got cartel scouts testing our boundaries. Jack, tell them what you pound. Jack Robertson stood, spreading photographs across the table. Fresh tracks along the North Wash. 6 different sets, all using high-end tactical boots. They're professionals trying to look like amateurs. Elena picked up one of the photos. These cuts in the fence, they're too clean for standard wire cutters. They're using something better, something quiet. They're not just passing through anymore, Marcus added, his usual cheerful demeanor replaced by focused intensity. The way they're watching the training sessions, taking notes on our routines. Sarah raised a hand, silencing the murmurs. Dr. Chen, what about that visit today? The one that didn't feel right. The veterinarian shifted uncomfortably. Man came in asking about buying retired police horses, said he represented a private security firm in Tucson, but his questions, they weren't about training or care. He wanted to know about our security, systems, staff numbers. Description? Sheriff Rivera asked, her notebook already open. Expensive suit, cheap boots, Mexican accent but trying to hide it. Called himself Miguel Salazar. Sarah's hand tightened slightly on Thunder's lead rope that lay across her lap. That name's been coming up, Jack. 3 other ranches in the area got similar visits, all from Salazar Security Consulting, all asking about security details. A knock at the door froze everyone in place. Thunder's ears pricked forward, but he remained calm, Elena moved to the window, peeking through the blinds. "It's okay," she said. "New arrival, the sergeant from Los Angeles." Sarah nodded. "Marcus, get him settled in the guest quarters. Everyone else, listen carefully. We're implementing new protocols starting tonight." Over the next hour, Sarah laid out precise instructions. Patrol routes would change. Training schedules would rotate randomly. No one would work alone, especially near the property boundaries. The horses' routines would shift unpredictably. "They're looking for new routes," Sarah finished, "and my ranch sits on prime real estate." Sheriff Rivera leaned forward, her voice dropping. "Sarah, if you're having problems..." "Nothing we can't handle, Maria." Sarah's voice carried quiet confidence. "But keep your eyes open. Something tells me this is just the beginning." As the sun hung low over the ranch, Elena worked with a group of mounted patrol officers and their horses. Commands rang out in multiple languages: English, Spanish, German, a legacy of international police training programs. Sarah stood at the edge of the arena, watching the controlled chaos with experienced eyes. Jack approached with deliberate steps, his expression grim. "Perimeter checks done. Found something you should know about. Tell me." "Fresh boot prints by the North Wash. Military-grade tactical boots. These aren't just random fence cutters anymore." Sarah nodded slowly, her hand resting on Thunder's neck. The stallion's ears were forward, alert, but not alarmed. In the distance, the training continued. Commands, responses, the synchronized movement of officers and horses. "Get everyone together after dinner," Sarah said finally. "It's time we had a talk about ranch security." Night settled over Tumbleweeds Ranch, the buildings glowing softly in the darkness. In the shadows between, sharp eyes watched. Both human and equine, ready for whatever the night might bring. The ranch's common room held a different energy after sunset. 8 people gathered around the heavy oak table, steaming coffee mugs before them. Sarah sat at the head, Thunder visible through the window, standing guard. "Let's not dance around it," Sarah began, her fingers tracing the rim of her untouched coffee. "We've got Cartel scouts testing our boundaries. Jack, tell them what you..." "Pound." Jack Robertson stood, spreading photographs across the table. Fresh tracks along the North Wash. 6 different sets, all using high-end tactical boots. They're professionals trying to look like amateurs. Elena picked up one of the photos. "These cuts in the fence, they're too clean for standard wire cutters. They're using something better, something quiet. They're not just passing through anymore," Marcus added, his usual cheerful demeanor replaced by focused intensity. "The way they're watching the training sessions, taking notes on our routines." Sarah raised a hand, silencing the murmurs. "Dr. Chen, what about that visit today? The one that didn't feel right?" The veterinarian shifted uncomfortably. "Man came in asking about buying retired police horses, said he represented a private security firm in Tucson, but his questions, they weren't about training or care. He wanted to know about our security, systems, staff numbers." "Description?" Sheriff Rivera asked, her notebook already open. "Expensive suit, cheap boots, Mexican accent but trying to hide it. Called himself Miguel Salazar." Sarah's hand tightened slightly on Thunder's lead rope that lay across her lap. "That name's been coming up, Jack." 3 other ranches in the area got similar visits, all from Salazar Security Consulting, all asking about security details. A knock at the door froze everyone in place. Thunder's ears pricked forward, but he remained calm. Elena moved to the window, peeking through the blinds. "It's okay," she said. "New arrival, the sergeant from Los Angeles." Sarah nodded. Marcus, get him settled in the guest quarters. Everyone else listen carefully. We're implementing new protocols starting tonight. Over the next hour, Sarah laid out precise instructions. Patrol routes would change. Training schedules would rotate randomly. No one would work alone, especially near the property boundaries. The horses' routines would shift unpredictably. The day brings mounting pressure. Bank accounts face repeated security checks, freezing funds temporarily. Internet service slows to a crawl. Cell phone coverage becomes suspiciously unreliable. During a quiet moment, Jack joins Sarah on the ranch house porch. They're trying to write the narrative. Local news running stories about militant ex-cops and unauthorized police training operations threatening border peace. Sarah nods, understanding the strategy. Making us look like the aggressors, trying to turn public opinion before they move. She pauses, watching Thunder patrol the fence line with military precision. Elena, your contact come through. Yeah. Banking oversight found interesting patterns. Shell companies buying land around the ranch, all traced back to Salazar security. They're not just isolating us, Sarah realizes. They're surrounding us, creating a net. Evening brings the ranch's supporters, local ranchers, police associations, retired mounted officers. Each offers help in their own way. Communications equipment appears through unofficial channels. Supplies arrive through backroad networks. Communities choosing sides, Sheriff Rivera observes, watching another truck of supplies arrive through the back gate. Old ranch families standing with you, newer money backing away, afraid of cartel influence. Sarah works late in her office, reviewing reports and maps, Thunder standing guard at the window. A quiet knock brings Marcus with fresh intelligence. More cartel observers, he reports. More cameras recording patterns. They think they're being clever, Sarah tells her team during a security briefing. Using our routines against us, but they don't understand something crucial about police horses and their riders. What's that? Elena asks, checking her saddle gear. We train to adapt to changing patterns instantly. They're learning our habits, but we're learning their methods. A call comes from Border Patrol. High-level cartel lieutenants crossing near Nogales. These are their infiltration specialists. Expected, Sarah replies, already planning countermeasures. They're done playing with local muscle. Now they send their professionals. Night settles over the ranch, but sleep comes in shifts. Guards rotate, horses patrol, sensors monitor. In the darkness, cartel observers document everything, missing. The subtle changes being implemented. Maria checks the reinforced stable area, like preparing for riot control again. Because we are, Sarah responds, adjusting Thunder's tactical gear. They'll hit us with everything. Legal pressure, public opinion, direct force. Standard cartel playbook for taking territory. But this isn't just territory, Jack adds, checking the perimeter sensors. This is a home for police horses who served their communities, for officers who need to heal. Sarah stands at her usual observation post, listening to the night. Thunder's ears track multiple movements in the darkness. Cartel observers thinking themselves hidden. They believe isolation breaks law enforcement, she says quietly. They don't understand every officer here has faced worse odds. Every horse has served in harder conditions. She turns to her team, her voice carrying quiet authority. We're not trapped in here with them. They're trapped out there with us. The night deepens, but the ranch never sleeps. Horses alert to hidden watchers. Officers check defensive positions. In the command center, a former mounted patrol sergeant runs through tactical plans. preparing responses to threats her enemies think she can't anticipate. Because on this battlefield, victory isn't about what you can see. It's about knowing exactly where your enemies expect you to be blind. Thunder's subtle shift in stance alerts Sarah to movement beyond the eastern fence. 3 more SUVs joining the observation teams, these ones carrying sophisticated communications equipment. They're coordinating something big, Jack reports, his experience with Border Patrol evident in his assessment. By mid-morning, the cartel shows its hand. A legal team arrives with court orders, health code violations, building permit issues, environmental impact concerns. Each document perfectly prepared, each accusation backed by falsified evidence. They're trying to shut us down legally before their hit teams move, Marcus explains, reviewing the papers. Make any resistance look like we're defying court orders. Sarah walks the property, every step measured, every detail analyzed. Thunder alerts to movement in the tree line. More observers, more cameras, more pressure building. They've got 6 teams in position, Elena reports from her observation post. These aren't local muscle. Way they move, way they communicate, federal police background. The first serious probe comes at dusk. Professional saboteurs target the ranch's power infrastructure, expecting to find standard security. Instead, they meet former mounted riot control officers, their horses moving with practiced precision in the darkness. Different cartels will try again, Sheriff Rivera warns. Different tactics, different approaches. Border territories too valuable to ignore. Let them come, Sarah responds calmly, because now they know what they'll really face. Not just horses and riders, but partners who found their way home, who remembered what serving something real means, who proved that underestimating law enforcement animals and their handlers was always a fatal mistake. The stars emerge over the transformed ranch, but on Tumbleweeds Ranch, defenders stand ready. Because today's operations taught something crucial about facing cartels, against officers who'd found purpose again, against horses who'd never lost their training, against a mounted sergeant who saw clearer than her enemies. No force could prevail. The real victory wasn't just in defeating cartels. It was proving that police horses and their handlers become strongest precisely because they learn to adapt, to overcome, to stand together. And in that eternal truth, Tumbleweeds Ranch's real purpose lives on. The ranch's morning routine shatters with the sound of screeching tires and gunfire. A delivery van, driven by one of their few remaining loyal suppliers, crashes through the front gate. The driver slumps over the wheel, blood seeping through his shirt. Marcus, check the perimeter. Elena, secure the horses. Jack, defensive positions. Sarah commands, instantly moving with practiced efficiency. Thunder stands perfectly still, already trained for gunfire scenarios. Elena sprints to the van, her police medical training taking over. Jack and Marcus provide cover while she works. Single gunshot, lower chest. He's losing blood fast. They shot him 2 miles out, the driver gasps, clutching Elena's arm. Professional hit team. Wanted me to tell you this is the cost of helping cops. Sarah stands near the gate, analyzing every sound. Thunder's ears swivel, tracking movement beyond. The property line. 3 vehicles holding back on the county road. Jack's voice crackles through the radio. Cartel hit team, watching their message get delivered. Got them, Marcus confirms. Black SUVs, heavily tinted, military precision positioning. Emergency. Services arrive slowly, too slowly. Sheriff Rivera looks grim. Local dispatch had equipment problems, delayed response by 15 minutes. They're in our systems now, Sarah notes. compromising response times. Maria, status on the driver. Sarah calls out, stable, but it was close. Another few minutes. Elena lets the thought hang. These weren't thugs. They were trained shooters, knew exactly where to hit him to send a message without killing. The day brings more calculated violence. A mounted patrol officer's family business back home burns down. Another finds his brothers. Construction company suddenly facing OSHA violations. Every supporter pays a price. Marcus works with the remaining officers, their training now focused on combat scenarios. They're not just hitting us, he reports, watching a sergeant practice evasive maneuvers on horseback. They're attacking everyone who helps us, making us toxic to support. Sarah runs her fingers over new intelligence reports. Classic isolation strategy. Cut off support, then squeeze. She pauses, catching distant engine sounds. Elena. 2 more. SUVs joining the observation teams. These ones have military-grade communications gear. They're coordinating something big. By mid-morning, the cartel shows its hand. A legal team arrives with court orders, health code violations, building permit issues, environmental impact concerns. Each document perfectly prepared, each accusation backed by falsified evidence. They're trying to shut us down legally before. Their hit teams move, Jack explains, reviewing the papers. Make any resistance look like we're defying court orders. Sarah walks the property, every step calculated. Thunder moving in perfect sync. The stallion alerts to movement in the tree line. More observers, more cameras, more pressure building. They've got 6 teams in position, Marcus reports from his observation post. These aren't local muscle. The way they move, way they communicate. Federal police background from south of the border. Maria returns from treating another injured supporter, a feed supplier who'd been beaten outside his warehouse. They're escalating, making examples of anyone who doesn't bow to pressure. The first serious attack comes at dusk. A precision shot takes out the ranch's main power transformer. In the momentary darkness before backup systems engage, multiple breach teams move. Sarah stands in the command center, maintaining calm as chaos erupts. They're testing our response times. 3 teams moving in coordinated assault, Elena reports. Professional shooters targeting security cameras and lights. They're good. We're better, Sarah responds, already implementing countermeasures. The ranch's defense proves her right. Every attack route leads into prepared kill zones. Every breach. Attempt meets overwhelming defensive force. The cartel teams find themselves caught in interlocking fields of fire. Their police training telling them they've walked into a trap. But victory comes with a cost. Jack takes a round in the shoulder, protecting the stables. 2 officers suffer, minor wounds. Star, Elena's police mount, catches a bullet meant for his rider. In the reinforced medical bay, Dr. Chen works to save Star's life, her hands moving with veterinary surgeon precision. Bullet missed the vitals, but he's lost blood. Needs specialized supplies. Already called my contacts, Elena says, assisting. Getting everything routed through police-owned clinics. Cartel can't pressure all of them. Sarah stands in the aftermath, listening to damage reports. The ranch held, but the enemy learned valuable information. Paid in blood for it, but learned all the same. They'll analyze every second of this fight, Marcus observes, cleaning his service weapon. Find weaknesses, plan counter moves. Let them, Sarah responds, because now we know something too. Know exactly what kind of operators they're using, their training, their tactics. Sheriff Rivera arrives as they're treating the wounded. Cartel's already spinning this, calling it a justified response to armed provocations. They've got county officials preparing statements supporting their version. Worse news, she adds. State police have orders to treat this as a civil matter. They're backing off, leaving it to local jurisdiction, where the cartel has influence, Sarah finishes, exactly as planned. But the attack brings unexpected support. Police officers start arriving, former SWAT, retired mounted patrol, tactical, trainers, each bringing skills, each volunteering to help, word spreading in the law enforcement community. Elena reports. Every injured supporter becomes a rally point. Local ranchers are forming support networks. Sarah works late into the night reviewing after-action reports, every detail building a clearer picture of their opponents. They'll hit harder next time, Jack says from his hospital bed, shoulder bandaged. Bring their best teams. They already did, Sarah corrects. Those were their elite, and now they know what it costs to face prepared mounted officers. Dawn approaches as Sarah makes her final rounds. The ranch shows battle damage, bullet holes, broken windows, bloody bandages. But it stands undefeated. In the medical bay, Star stirs from surgery. The police horse's training shows even now. First movement is to check for his rider. Elena talks to him softly, their bond unbroken by wounds. Get some rest, Sarah tells her team. They'll study tonight's footage, plan their next move carefully. Means we have time to prepare our surprises. The sun rises over Tumbleweeds Ranch, revealing the night's violence, but something else shows in the morning light. Determination. Officers check weapons with practiced hands. Horses patrol with heightened alertness. Every person on the property understands now. This isn't just about one ranch. They think they've shown their power, Sarah says quietly to Thunder. Shown. The cost of defiance. They don't understand something about mounted officers and their horses. What's that? Marcus asks, adjusting his tactical gear. We've all faced worse odds before. All stood against bigger threats, and we never learned to back down. Thunder's ears track multiple movements beyond the fence. Cartel observers documenting damage, planning next attacks. But on the ranch, officers prepare their responses, because this ground holds something worth bleeding for, a place where police horses serve again, where mounted officers find purpose. And no amount of cartel violence would change that simple truth. Star's recovery brings the first good news in days. The police horse's training shows in his determination to return to duty, even as Dr. Chen changes his bandages. Elena watches. From her chair, her own arm in a sling. He's tough, Sarah says, listening to the horse's steady breathing. Like his rider, Jack responds, already trying to get back to work. Speaking of which, not yet, Dr. Chen interrupts firmly. Both of you need at least 48 hours. Doctor's orders. Sarah tilts her head, catching approaching engine sounds. Marcus? Unmarked. SUV, government plates, DEA is with them. The battle lines were drawn. The next phase would test everything they stood for, everything they'd built. But on Tumbleweeds Ranch, the defenders stood ready, because sometimes the strongest warriors aren't those with the most weapons, but those with the most to protect. The visitors bring unexpected support. 2 retired DEA agents now working private. Security consultation. Their intelligence changes everything. Cartels bringing in their ghost team. One agent explains, spreading surveillance photos across the command center table. Elite unit, all former federal police. They normally handle cartel leadership protection. Sarah absorbs this information, watching Thunder stand guard by the window. Not their usual assault team. Why waste executive protection on a ranch fight? Because this isn't about the ranch anymore, Sheriff Rivera says. Our sources say Miguel Salazar is under pressure. Cartel leadership sees this as a personal failure. He has to make an example now, or he loses position. Marcus wheels his police motorcycle into the yard, Max alert beside him. Ghost team means we've hurt them. They don't risk those assets unless they're desperate. Elena returns from her rounds, face troubled. That's not all. My old mounted patrol network picked up chatter. Cartel's offering bounties now, 5 million. For the ranch, double if they take key personnel alive. The implications sink in. Sarah stands perfectly still, listening to her ranch's defensive preparations. They want to make a public statement, show what happens to those who resist. New officers arrive hourly, drawn by the spreading story, offering support. Each brings skills, each understands the stakes. The ranch's defensive capabilities grow, but so do the responsibilities. We're housing 34 people now, Jack reports from his observation post. Most with law enforcement experience, all volunteering to help. But it strains resources and gives them more targets. Sarah turns to Sheriff Rivera. What's the word in town? Communities dividing. Old families standing with you, bringing supplies through channels. Newer businesses backing away, afraid of cartel pressure. She pauses, weighing her next words. And we've got another problem. County Commissioner called an emergency session. They're trying to declare the ranch a public nuisance, giving them legal cover to move against us. Elena, your banking contact come through? Better than we hoped. Found money trails linking county officials to cartel shell companies. Evidence of systematic corruption going back years. The day brings more pressure. Cartel observers maintain constant surveillance, their presence a psychological weapon. Local media runs stories about dangerous ex-cops and unauthorized militias. Sarah works her way through the property, evaluating every detail. Officers drill in defensive positions, their police training evident in their discipline. Horses patrol with heightened alertness, sensing the tension. They're changing patterns, Jack observes from his recovery bed. Ghost teams rotating observation, posts using different vehicles. Professional counterintelligence. David coordinates the expanding defense network. Our people are adapting. Police training kicks in. They understand tactical problems, find solutions. A surprise visit from Dr. Chen brings critical intelligence. Overheard something at the county hospital. They're clearing trauma beds, putting extra medical teams on standby. Someone's expecting casualties. Sarah absorbs this, mind working. They're preparing for something big, not just a hit team this time. Elena's network provides confirmation. Cartels moving significant resources across the border. Vehicle convoys, weapon shipments, communications gear, getting ready to end. This publicly. Make an example that no one forgets, Sheriff Rivera adds grimly. The afternoon brings the first test of the ranch's expanded defenses. A probing attack, professional shooters targeting observation posts. Officers respond with disciplined fire, driving them back. They're testing our new personnel, Marcus reports. Learning response patterns, reaction times. Sarah nods. And we learned something too. Their shots were designed to wound, not kill. They want prisoners for interrogation. The day's tension takes its toll. Arguments break out among defenders, different opinions on tactics, on risks. Sarah listens to the discord, understanding its source. They're officers, she tells her corps. team. Used to clear chains of command, we need to adapt our structure. Marcus proposes a solution: police-style organization. Squad leaders, defined responsibilities, lets them operate in familiar patterns. Implementation brings immediate improvement. Officers fall naturally into roles they understand. The ranch's defense transforms from a collection of volunteers into an organized force. Evening brings more supporters. Local ranchers establish supply lines through backcountry roads. Underground networks of police officers coordinate intelligence sharing. The cartel's attempt to isolate the ranch backfires, creating a web of resistance. They don't understand what they've done, Elena observes, treating minor injuries. Every officer they pressure, every family they threaten, it just brings more support. Sarah works late in the command center reviewing intelligence reports. They'll have to move soon. Ghost Team's presence means they're on a timeline. Why? Jack asks, adjusting his sling. Because assets like that are expensive, highly visible. Other cartels watch for weaknesses, wait to exploit them. Sheriff Rivera brings final news of the day. Counties scheduled their emergency session for tomorrow. They'll try to get court orders for immediate action. Moving pieces into position, Sarah notes. Legal pressure first, then direct action when we resist. Night settles over the ranch, but sleep comes in shifts. Officers patrol. In practiced formations, horses alert to hidden observers. Every defender understands the real battle approaches. In the medical bay, Star stirs, sensing tension. Elena talks to him softly, their bonds strengthened by shared wounds. Easy boy, save your strength. We'll need it soon. Sarah makes her final rounds, every sound telling a story. Thunder moves silent beside her, ears tracking multiple threats in the darkness. They think they're ready, she tells her team. Think they understand what they're facing. But they've made a critical mistake. What's that? Elena asks, checking. Her tactical gear. They see us as broken officers, retired cops, injured horses. They don't understand our wounds didn't weaken us. They taught us how to fight through pain. The night deepens, hiding watchers on both sides. But on Tumbleweeds Ranch, officers check weapons with practiced hands. Because tomorrow brings the real test. When a cartel's elite faces law enforcement who never learned to surrender. And in this battle, experience isn't weakness. It's just another weapon in the arsenal of those who've already overcome it. The morning would prove what cartels never understand, that sometimes the most dangerous opponents aren't those with the most weapons, but those with the most reasons to stand their ground. Thunder's subtle shift alerts Sarah to movement beyond the north fence. The cartel's observers were changing positions, preparing for tomorrow's assault. Let them come, she thought. Let them learn what happens when they mistake police experience for weakness. Because on this piece of Arizona desert, the real strength wasn't in weapons or numbers. It was in the unbreakable bond between officers and their mounts, in the determination of those who'd sworn to protect and serve, in the courage of those who'd already faced down worse odds and emerged stronger. Tomorrow would show them exactly what that meant. Morning brings the sound of helicopters circling the county courthouse. The emergency session about Tumbleweeds Ranch draws crowds, carefully orchestrated by cartel influence. Sarah stands before the commissioners, Thunder steady beside her. This ranch has become a public menace, Commissioner Rodriguez declares, his polished desk nameplate gleaming under fluorescent lights. Unauthorized police training operations, armed personnel, dangerous animals. We have no choice but to act. Sarah faces them calmly. Interesting timing, Commissioner. Right after my ranch refused cartel pressure, right after we exposed the operations running through your district. These allegations are baseless. Miguel Salazar interrupts from his seat. We're legitimate businessmen concerned about community safety. Like the safety of our delivery driver? Sarah asks quietly. The one your hit team shot? Or the local businesses you've threatened? Sheriff Rivera steps forward, dropping files on the commissioner's desk. Federal banking records, proof of payments from cartel shell companies to county officials, including this commission. The room erupts. Reporters surge forward. Commissioners shuffle papers nervously. Salazar slips out a side door, phone already at his ear. This session is suspended pending investigation, the county judge announces. But Sarah catches the sound of hurried text messages, urgent calls. They'll move. Now, she tells her team over radio, use this meeting to get us away from the ranch. Multiple vehicles approaching from 3 directions, Marcus responds. Ghost teams moving. They think we're defenseless. Sarah nods to Sheriff Rivera. Time to see if our information was worth the risk. The ranch's defenders are ready. Elena, coordinates from the command center. Her tactical mounted unit experience showing in precise orders. Officers respond with practiced efficiency, moving to prepared positions. The ghost team strikes with professional precision. Multiple breach points. Coordinated assault teams, expert shooters targeting security systems, but they find no easy victory. They're good, Jack observes from his observation post, still favoring his injured shoulder. But they expected civilian security. They got police officers instead. The battle transforms the ranch into a tactical chessboard. Every cartel move meets prepared counter-moves. Every assault route leads into killing zones. The ghost team's police training works against them. They expect standard defensive patterns, find adaptive officers instead. Southeast team pushing hard, Elena reports, her competition shooting skills picking off cartel shooters with surgical precision. They're trying to reach the stables. Let them, Sarah responds, her mind calculating movements. Marcus, status, medical. Bay ready, but Sarah, they're using police-grade weapons. If they break through, they won't. Jack, 3rd team spotted, trying to flank north. Thunder already alerted to them, officers moving to intercept. The ghost team's professionalism shows in their quick adaptation. Finding prepared defenses, they switch tactics, trying to draw defenders into exposed positions. Sarah listens to the battle, every sound building her tactical map. They're probing, learning, Elena warns. Watch your left. A sniper bullet sparks off her position's armor plating. They're good, she admits. Almost had me. Almost isn't enough, Sarah responds. Not against officers who faced worse. Dothichi, tide turns at the stables. The ghost team breaches the outer fence, expecting easy access to valuable targets. Instead, they find police horses and their handlers waiting in prepared positions. Like old riot control days, a veteran mounted officer. Radios, his Appaloosa taking down a cartel shooter. Horses remember their crowd control training, but victory demands its price. 2 officers take wounds. A young police horse catches shrapnel protecting his handler. Marcus's medical bay fills with the injured. Running low on supplies, he reports, hands steady as he treats wounds. They're trying to overwhelm our medical capacity. Keep working, Sarah orders. Jack, status on reinforcements? Local ranchers blocking cartel backup teams. Sheriff Rivera has state police finally responding. Ghost teams isolated. The battle reaches its crucial moment. The ghost team, realizing their error, attempts tactical retreat, but Sarah has anticipated this. All units, she commands. Operation Snapback now. The ranch's defense transforms into coordinated pursuit. Officers and horses herd the retreating cartel teams into prepared trap zones. The ghost team's police training betrays them. They retreat along tactically sound routes, exactly as predicted. Like Los Angeles riots, Elena observes from command, using their professionalism against them. Sarah stands in the command center, listening to victory unfold. They train to fight standard opponents, never learn to face police officers with nothing left to lose. The final count proves the ranch's effectiveness. 7 ghost team members captured, others retreating under fire. Border Patrol units arrive to find cartel shooters zip-tied and waiting. Professional job, Sheriff Rivera admits, surveying the scene. They never expected this level of resistance. But triumph brings consequences. Miguel Salazar disappears back across the border. Cartel leadership, embarrassed by their elite team's failure, will demand blood payment. Evening finds Sarah's team assessing damage. Marcus treats wounds, officers repair defenses, horses maintain alert watch. They'll come harder next time, Jack warns. Cartel can't accept this kind of failure. Let them come, Sarah responds, her fingers tracing bullet holes in the walls, measuring the battle's cost. Every attack makes us stronger. Every fighter they lose weakens them. Night settles over Tumbleweeds Ranch. In the medical bay, injured officers and horses rest under Marcus's care. The property shows battle damage but stands undefeated. They still don't understand, Sarah tells her team during debriefing. Think our experience makes us vulnerable. Don't realize every incident taught us something valuable. What's that? A young officer asks. That fear is temporary, that injuries heal, but the will to protect what matters, that lasts forever. Thunder's ears track movement in the darkness, more cartel observers, more eyes watching. But on the ranch, officers check weapons with practiced hands, because today proved something important. Against law enforcement who'd already lost everything once, against horses who'd never broken faith, against a mounted sergeant who saw more clearly than her enemies. The cartel's best had failed, and the real battle was just beginning. The captured ghost team members speak volumes through their silence. Elite cartel operators trained to resist interrogation, but their equipment tells a story. Sarah runs her fingers over seized communication gear while Sheriff Rivera examines documents. Top-line equipment, the sheriff notes. Executive protection level. Cartel leadership invested serious resources in this operation and lost them, Sarah adds, her head tilted to catch approaching engine sounds. They'll respond to that. Deputy Torres arrives with urgent news. Salazar surfaced in Sonora. Emergency meeting with cartel leadership. My sources say it got violent. Cartel doesn't tolerate failure, Sheriff Rivera explains, especially not expensive, public failure. The pieces were set. The next phase would begin. And on Tumbleweeds Ranch, defenders prepared for what they knew would come next. Because sometimes the most dangerous enemy isn't the one who succeeds, but the one who's just tasted bitter defeat. The morning brings evidence of new tactics. Marcus's sister in Phoenix finds her police pension under sudden review. Elena's father reports strangers photographing his ranch. Jack's daughter faces surprise school enrollment challenges. They're going after families now, Elena observes from the command center, thunder alert beside his temporary post, making it personal. Because professional approaches failed, Sarah absorbs this, watching the surveillance feeds. There, getting desperate, emotional, the ranch's expanded defensive network proves its worth. Officers' families relocate to safe houses, support networks activate protecting supply lines. But the pressure takes its toll. 3 more volunteers pulled out, Marcus reports from his observation post. Can't risk their families. Can't blame them, Elena adds, checking medical supplies. We're not just fighting cartel gunmen anymore. They're attacking lives, careers, everything that matters. Sarah works her way around the property, thunder matching her stride. Officers drill in defensive positions, but tension shows in their movements. The horses sense it, remain hyper-alert. They think they found our weakness, she tells her core team. Targeting families, support networks, standard cartel intimidation. But they made a mistake, Jack says from his recovery chair, Star attentive beside him. These officers, these horses, we're already family. Attack one, face all, the cartels. Next move comes through media. Local news runs exposés about police mental health risks, dangerous training practices, unauthorized tactical operations. Each story carefully crafted to build public fear. Getting creative, Sheriff Rivera observes, reviewing coverage. Painting you as the threat to public safety, making cartel violence look like justified response. Deputy Torres brings worse news. Internal Affairs launching investigations. Every officer who supported the ranch faces review. They're trying to isolate us officially. Sarah stands perfectly still, listening to her ranch's defensive preparations. Elena, your banking contact still working? Better than ever. Found links between media ownership and cartel shell companies, evidence of coordinated disinformation campaigns. New officers arrive despite the pressure, or because of it. Each brings skills. Each understands the rising stakes. The ranch's capabilities evolve, adapting to changing threats. They're not just fighters, Marcus reports, coordinating training. Former intelligence analysts, communication specialists, logistics experts, making us stronger. The afternoon brings the first probe of new defenses. Cartel observers test response times, document patrol patterns, professional surveillance, but sloppier than before. Ghost teams replacements, Jack observes. Good, but not elite. They're running short of top operators. Sarah nods, studying their movement patterns, using second-string teams. Media pressure, family intimidation, signs of desperation. A surprise visit from Dr. Chen confirms this assessment. Overheard something at the country club. Salazar's losing influence. Cartel leadership questioning his judgment, making him more dangerous, Sarah concludes. He needs a win now at any cost. The day's tension builds beneath surface calm. Officers maintain defensive positions, but worry for distant families shows in their movements. Horses pick up the anxiety, remain. Combat-ready Elena coordinates with underground support networks. Medical supplies coming through police-owned clinics. They can't pressure all of us at once. They'll try, Sheriff Rivera warns. Cartels reallocating resources, shifting from direct action to systematic destruction of support networks. Evening brings proof of changing tactics. Bank accounts frozen for suspicious activity, internet services disrupted, supply deliveries blocked by sudden regulatory concerns. Sarah works late in the command center, analyzing patterns. They're not trying to break in anymore. They're trying to break us down, destroy everything we need to function. Won't work, Marcus says firmly. Police training taught us adaptation. Find problems, create solutions. Sheriff Rivera arrives with intelligence from her department. Cartel's expanding operations, taking control of key infrastructure, building leverage over entire communities. Because direct force failed, Sarah notes. Now they fight on different grounds: economic pressure, social isolation, psychological warfare. Night settles over the ranch, but sleep comes in shifts. Officers patrol in practiced formations, each understanding the widening battle. Horses maintain alert watch, sensing elevated stakes. Sarah makes final rounds, every sound telling a story. Thunder moves silent beside her, ears tracking multiple threats in darkness. They think they're being clever, she tells her team during midnight briefing. Using indirect pressure, attacking support structures. But they don't understand something crucial. "What's that?" Elena asks, adjusting her tactical gear. Officers adapt, horses adapt. Every new pressure just teaches us new responses. And we've got something they'll never understand. "What?" Marcus leans forward, checking his radio. "Nothing left to lose. They can attack our families. We'll protect them. Freeze our accounts. We'll find alternatives. Destroy our supplies. We'll create new networks." The night deepens, hiding watchers on both sides. But on Tumbleweeds Ranch, officers check weapons with practiced hands. Because tomorrow brings new challenges, new battles on unexpected fronts. And in this expanding war, experience isn't weakness. It's proof of survival against worse odds than any cartel could create. Thunder's low growl breaks the pre-dawn quiet. Sarah freezes, analyzing sounds. The stallion's alert isn't directed outside the fence. He's focused on movement within the ranch. "Multiple footsteps," Sarah whispers into her radio. "Western storage area, moving too quiet for regular patrol." Cameras. "Show nothing!" Elena's voice comes back tense. "Someone knocked out that sector's security." "Inside job," Jack responds from his observation post. "Has to be. Those systems were manually disabled." The ranch's defenders move with practiced silence. Officers take covering positions while Sarah tracks the intruders through sound alone. 3 people carrying heavy equipment, Marcus radios, moving with police precision. "Status of medical supplies?" Sarah asks over secure channel. "Checking now," Elena responds. "And no, the new shipment. They're stealing our medical supplies." The confrontation unfolds in whispered violence. 2 newer volunteers, recently arrived officers claiming to need help, caught loading critical supplies into bags. Their police training shows in how they fight, but they face prepared defenders. Cartel offered better benefits, one spits as Deputy Torres handcuffs him. Said they'd clear our records, set up new identities. Sarah stands in the aftermath, fingers moving over tampered security panels. They're getting creative, using officers against officers. The morning brings harsh revelations. Background checks reveal careful cartel infiltration. 3 more volunteers show suspicious histories. Supply manifests indicate systematic theft. "They've been gathering intelligence," Marcus observes from the command center, Thunder alert beside him. "Learning our procedures, our weaknesses." "And spreading doubt," Elena adds, "making us question every new arrival, every supporter." Sarah works her way around the property, cataloging changes in sound patterns. Officers move differently now, trust damaged by betrayal. Horses sense the tension, remain combat-ready. The battle lines were drawn. But on Tumbleweeds Ranch, something stronger than trust was building. The unshakable bond of those who choose to stand together, knowing the cost, ready to pay the price. Because sometimes the strongest unity isn't built on blind faith. It's forged in the fire of betrayal. tempered by the knowledge that those who remain chose to stay despite everything. Tomorrow would prove that truth, one way or another. The ranch's communication system fails at exactly 3 a.m. Phones die first, then internet, then radio networks. Sarah stands in the command center, listening to the cascade of silence. Complete blackout, Marcus reports, working through backup. Systems. Professional job. They hit everything simultaneously. Not everything, Sarah responds calmly. Around the property, officers activate contingency equipment. Former police communications specialists deploy emergency gear. Hidden backup systems come online, like riot control scenarios, Jack observes through static-filled radio. When protesters jam communications, we adapt. Still remember the protocols. The morning reveals the attack's scope. Banking systems frozen, security cameras compromised. Even traffic lights near ranch supply routes malfunction mysteriously. Elena returns from emergency supply run. Towns splitting apart. Businesses choosing sides openly now. Old families standing. With us, new money-backing cartel pressure. Because Salazar's desperate, Sheriff Rivera confirms, arriving with intelligence. Cartel sent their technology specialist, man known only as El Ingeniero, former federal police cybersecurity expert. Sarah works her way around the property, every sound painting pictures. Officers maintain defensive positions while technical teams trace digital attacks. They're probing deeper than comms, Marcus reports from his station. Trying to access personnel files, medical records, supply networks. Let them look, Sarah responds. Show them exactly what we want them to see. Elena coordinates from command center, her previous tactical experience adapting to digital warfare. Like psychological operations during riots, feed them information, shape their responses. The cartel's cyber assault reveals unexpected strength among the defenders. Officers with intelligence backgrounds track attack sources. Former police IT specialists fortify systems. They think they're fighting random cops, Jack observes, watching counter-cyber operations. Don't realize how many of us worked police. Intelligence. Deputy Torres brings reports from town. They're hitting infrastructure now. Power grid irregularities, water pressure problems, making daily life harder for ranch supporters. Sarah stands perfectly still, analyzing patterns. Marcus, your medical network still secure? Better than ever. Underground police channels, tactical, medical contacts. They can't track what they can't see. The afternoon brings escalation. Automated systems malfunction. Security doors activate randomly. Even the ranch's climate control systems show tampering attempts. Getting creative, Elena notes, coordinating defense, using our own technology against us. But they don't understand. And police adaptability, Sarah nods, because they expect panic when systems fail, don't realize we're trained for exactly this. A surprise visit from Dr. Chen confirms their advantage. Town's digital infrastructure compromised, but old ranch families are adapting, going back to paper records, cash transactions, personal trust networks. Communities learning, Sarah observes, understanding that technology dependence creates vulnerability. Evening reveals the attack's true purpose. Digital probes expose defender positions, patrol patterns, supply routes. Each system breach attempts to map ranch operations, building digital intelligence. El Ingeniero never works without a larger plan, Sheriff Rivera explains. Preparing for something bigger, Sarah works late in the command center, fingers moving over tactical maps while officers trace cyber attacks. They think technology is their advantage, don't understand something crucial about police experience. What's that? Elena asks, monitoring. Emergency frequencies. We learn to fight when systems fail, learn to trust instinct over electronics, learn that human spirit beats digital dependence. Night settles over the ranch, but sleep comes in shifts. Officers maintain both physical and digital watch. Horses patrol with heightened alertness, immune to electronic warfare. Sarah makes final rounds, every sound telling stories. Thunder moves silent beside her, ears tracking threats no computer can detect. They're watching through cameras they think we don't know about, Jack reports, documenting everything. Good, Sarah responds. Let them study digital ghosts while we prepare real surprises. Deputy Torres brings final intelligence. El Ingeniero's reputation is perfect. Operations never failed a cartel objective. Uses technology to break targets completely. Perfect record ends here, Sarah says quietly, because he's fighting opponents who remember life before computers, officers who learn to trust horses over devices, instinct over electronics. The night deepens, hiding watchers in digital shadows. But on Tumbleweeds Ranch, officers check both weapons and firewalls. Because today's battle taught something vital about facing cartels. Against officers who'd found purpose again, against horses who'd never lost their training, against a mounted sergeant who saw clearer than her enemies, digital warfare found unexpected resistance. And in this new phase of conflict, technology wasn't the deciding factor. It was the human spirit that refused to be controlled by it. Dawn approaches as Sarah stands on her porch, listening to the ranch's pulse. Aircraft engines rumble distantly. Cartel drones gathering data, trying to map defenses through technology. Let them watch, she tells her team. Let them think screens and software give them control. They don't understand what really wins wars. Which is, Marcus asks, checking his backup radio. The thing no computer can calculate, the will to stand firm when everything fails. The bond between officers who trust each other more than any system. Thunder's ears track movement beyond digital surveillance. Around the property, officers maintain guard with practiced instinct. Because tomorrow brings new challenges on unexpected fronts. And in this evolving battle, experience wasn't weakness. It was proof that human spirit trumps technological advantage every time. Power fails across Desert Valley as emergency sirens wail. Traffic lights die, water pressure drops, and cell networks crash. At Tumbleweeds Ranch, Sarah stands in darkness, listening to backup generators engage. Town's completely dark, Elena reports from observation. Systematic shutdown spreading from east to west. Professional grid attack. El Ingeniero's signature, Sheriff Rivera confirms through emergency radio. Taking down infrastructure piece by piece, making it look like cascading failure. Marcus coordinates from the command center, running on backup power. Officers report similar patterns from riot control experience. Protesters used infrastructure attacks before major confrontations. Sarah works her way through the property, every sound heightened in darkness. Officers maintain positions while technical teams track system failures. They're targeting more than power, Elena reports, checking emergency equipment. Hospital backup generators failing, traffic control systems corrupted, even emergency services. Dispatches down, making the community vulnerable. Sarah notes the strategy, showing what happens to those who support us. But the morning reveals something the cartel didn't expect. As chaos spreads through Desert Valley, communities don't break, they adapt. Old police networks activate, veteran-owned businesses switch to paper systems, underground supply lines expand, like watching tactical training pay off, Marcus observes. Adapt, overcome, help others do the same. The stars emerge over transformed buildings, but on Tumbleweeds Ranch, defenders stand ready because their battle taught something crucial about fighting cartels, against officers who'd found purpose. Again, against horses who'd never lost faith, against a mounted sergeant who saw clearer than her enemies. No force could prevail. The real triumph wasn't just defeating technology, it was proving that law enforcement becomes strongest, precisely because they learn to adapt, to overcome, to stand together. And in that eternal truth, Tumbleweeds Ranch's real purpose lives. On heat ripples across Desert Valley as emergency sirens wail for the third straight day. Power fluctuates wildly, water systems surge and fail, and communications remain spotty at best. At Tumbleweeds Ranch, Sarah stands in the command center, monitoring their independent systems. El Ingeniero's getting sloppy, Marcus reports, tracking digital intrusion attempts, making mistakes we've never seen in his record. He's frustrated. Good, Sarah responds, feeling thunder shift nervously outside the window. Frustration leads to errors. Errors lead to vulnerability. Elena bursts in, her tactical vest dusty from perimeter patrol. 3 more families just arrived seeking shelter. Local business owners, cartels targeting their computer systems, trying to destroy their livelihoods. Get them settled in the East Barn, Sarah directs. Marcus, expand our backup generator capacity. We're becoming a refuge whether we plan to or not. The morning brings evidence of spreading chaos. Banks can't process transactions. Gas stations can't pump fuel, grocery. Stores can't run registers, but Desert Valley shows unexpected resilience. Police families are organizing neighborhood watches, Sheriff Rivera reports during her morning briefing. Retired officers setting up communication hubs. Communities adapting faster than the cartel planned. Sarah walks the perimeter with thunder, listening to the transformed landscape. Where once digital networks connected everything, now human networks flourish. Horse hooves carry messages between ranches. Old police radio equipment bridges communication gaps. Found something interesting, Jack calls from his observation post. Their surveillance drones keep losing control signals. Someone's using old counter-electronic warfare techniques from riot control days. Who? Sarah asks, already suspecting. The answer. Remember Thompson? That retired tactical communications specialist who moved out here last year? Turns out his hobby workshop isn't just for fixing radios. El Ingeniero's frustration shows in escalating attacks. Traffic accidents increase as signal systems malfunction randomly. ATMs dispense cash without authorization. Building security systems trigger lockdowns. He's losing control, Marcus observes, monitoring defense networks, making amateur mistakes. His perfect record's at risk, and cartel leadership is watching. A surprise visit from Dr. Chen brings unexpected news. Hospital board meeting was interesting. Their new computer system, the one cartel shell companies pushed them to install, it's compromised, showing them why trusting technology over people was a mistake. The afternoon reveals the attack's unintended consequences. Banks resort to physical ledgers. Stores return to cash transactions. Neighbors check on neighbors, sharing resources. town remembers something important. Technology makes life easier, Elena observes during supply distribution. But community makes life possible. Sarah stands on her porch, listening to adaptation in progress. They thought infrastructure collapse would isolate us. Instead, it's revealing who really stands together. Night settles over Desert Valley. But darkness brings growing strength. Officers patrol streets, maintaining order. Horses alert to threats no camera could catch. Community bonds deepen through shared challenge. El Ingeniero watching through compromised systems, Marcus reports. Trying to understand why his perfect operations are failing. Let him watch, Sarah responds. Let him learn what police service really teaches. Not just how to use technology, but how to function without it. Deputy Torres brings final reports. Town council meeting by candlelight, voting to formally request state intervention. Federal agencies noticing suspicious infrastructure patterns. Cartels losing control, Sheriff Rivera confirms. El Ingeniero's operations drawing unwanted attention, making them vulnerable. Sarah makes final rounds, every sound telling victories. Approach. Thunder moves silent beside her, ears tracking threats beyond digital detection. They thought technology dependence was universal, she tells her team. Thought breaking systems would break spirits. Made a crucial mistake. What's that? Elena asks, checking emergency supplies. Forgot that officers learn to fight with everything or nothing. That horses don't need computers to stay loyal. That human spirit grows stronger when systems fail. El Ingeniero's last desperate attack comes at midnight. Every electronic device on the ranch simultaneously overloads, sparking and smoking. But in the resulting darkness, Sarah just smiles. Predictable, she says quietly. Classic frustration response when technology fails. They just destroyed their own surveillance. Jack reports through old-style radio. Every bug, every camera, every tracking device fried by their own attack. Dawn reveals the cartel's mounting frustration. Miguel Salazar reappears in town, his expensive suit unable to hide tension. El Ingeniero's perfect record lies in ruins, along with millions in surveillance equipment. Cartel leadership's called an emergency meeting, Sheriff Rivera reports, arriving with intelligence. They're losing patience, demanding immediate results. Elena returns from town, her expression grim. Intercepted cartel communications. They're mobilizing everything, every asset, every resource. This is their final push. Sarah works her way around the property, cataloging subtle changes in sound patterns. Officers maintain heightened alert, while horses show increasing agitation. Something's different, Marcus observes from his post. Their observation teams are pulling back, creating distance. Artillery range, Elena explains from command. They're preparing for something big. Standard police tactical doctrine. Clear the zone before major assault. Deputy Torres brings confirmation. Large convoys crossing. The border. Heavy weapons, professional mercenaries. They're not trying to hide anymore. Sarah stands perfectly still, analyzing implications, because they've run out of options. Infiltration failed, technology failed. Only brute force remains. The afternoon reveals the attack's scale. Cartel forces, mass in hidden locations. Weapon shipments move through secret routes. Even local corruption shows strain under the buildup. State police can't ignore this anymore, Sheriff Rivera notes. Too many witnesses, too much evidence. Federal agencies finally moving. Jack coordinates defensive preparations. Like watching thunderclouds gather. Officers feel it coming, horses sense it. Big storm approaching. Elena's police network brings crucial intelligence, hospitals being ordered to prepare mass casualty response. They're not planning surgical strikes anymore, Marcus warns. This is scorched earth. Sarah works late in the command center, fingers moving over tactical maps. They think overwhelming force is their last option, don't understand something important about cornered officers. What's that? Elena asks, checking ammunition supplies. We fight hardest when there's nowhere left to retreat, when it's not just about winning, but surviving. Night settles over Tumbleweeds Ranch, but sleep comes in combat shifts. Officers check. Weapons with practiced hands. Horses patrol with war zone intensity. 24 hours, Sheriff Rivera estimates. Maybe less. They'll want darkness for the main assault. Sarah nods. Elena, get the wounded out. Anyone who can't fight needs to move now. Already started, she responds. Underground police networks activated. Safe houses ready. Deputy Torres brings final confirmation. Miguel Salazar spotted meeting with Cartel hit team leaders. They're calling in specialists from every territory, he reports. Good, Sarah says quietly. Let them gather everything in one place. Makes our job simpler. The ranch's defenders make final preparations. Officers draw on riot control experience. Establishing kill zones. Horses receive last training refreshers. Medical supplies deployed to strategic points. Like old times, Jack observes. Pre-mission focus, everyone knowing their role, trusting their training. Sarah works through last-minute adjustments, every sound building her mental map. They think numbers and weapons guarantee victory. Forgot. The most important lesson of police work, which is, Elena asks, the side fighting for community always fights harder than the side fighting for pay. The night deepens over Tumbleweeds Ranch. In darkness, cartel forces make final preparations, confident in their overwhelming numbers. But on the ranch, officers check weapons one last time, because tomorrow brings the decisive battle, and they've learned something crucial about fighting cartels. Against officers who'd already lost everything once, against horses who'd never broken faith, against a mounted sergeant who saw clearer than her enemies. Raw force meant nothing. The real question wasn't who had more weapons, but who had more to fight for. And on that ground, Tumbleweeds Ranch stood undefeated. The first attack comes at false dawn. Heavily armed cartel teams breaching the outer fence at 3 points, expecting to find sleeping defenders. Instead, they meet prepared officers and combat-trained horses. Like they're reading a manual on compound assault, Jack observes through emergency radio. Exactly where we predicted. Sarah stands in the command center, head tilted to track sounds of combat. Because they're using ex-police. Consultants following standard tactics, making standard mistakes. The morning explodes into coordinated violence. Cartel forces probe defenses with professional precision, testing response times. Each thrust meets prepared resistance. Each assault finds defenders waiting. South team pushing hard, Elena reports from her position. Using covered approaches. Police formation. These aren't street thugs. No, Sarah confirms. These are their professionals, which means they're predictable. Marcus, trap zones ready. Horses in position, just like we planned. Maria coordinates from the medical bay, police experience showing in her efficient movements. 3 wounded so far, minor injuries only. They're testing our medical response times. The cartel's first wave reveals their strategy. Elite teams. Target communication points, supply lines, defensive strong points. Each objective carefully chosen, each assault precisely timed. Classical police doctrine. Sheriff Rivera observes through secure channel. Systematic reduction of defensive capabilities. They're following tactical manuals exactly. Sarah nods, fingers moving over maps. Because they think we're amateurs. And playing cop. Don't realize every officer here knows those same tactics. The morning battle intensifies. Cartel forces commit more resources, pushing harder at defensive lines, but each assault meets unexpected resistance. They don't understand, Jack reports between exchanges. Think they're fighting scared civilians, finding police officers instead. Deputy Torres brings crucial intelligence. State police finally mobilizing. Federal response teams en route. But they're hours away. We don't need hours, Sarah responds calmly. Just long enough to spring the trap. The cartel's frustration shows in escalating violence. More teams commit to the assault. More resources pour into the attack. Professional operators push harder, finding harder resistance. Like watching them read our playbook, Elena observes from command. Every move exactly where predicted. Every response playing into our hands. Marcus's medical skills face growing. Demands, casualties increasing, but something's wrong with their attack pattern. They're not pressing advantages, not exploiting breakthroughs, because they're following procedure too carefully, Sarah explains, trying to fight by the book against officers who wrote those books. The morning's combat reveals deeper patterns. Cartel teams move with police precision, but lack police flexibility. Each assault follows doctrine exactly, finds prepared counters waiting. They bought expertise, Jack notes between firefights. Hired police knowledge, but they didn't earn. Police instinct. Elena's voice cuts through combat noise. Major push building on east side. Multiple teams, heavy weapons. This is their real thrust. No. Sarah stands perfectly still, listening to battle sounds. That's what they want us to think. Jack? West. Side units pulling back, creating gaps. Classic feint maneuver. Exactly. Spring the trap now. The ranch's defense transforms in coordinated motion. Officers shift positions with practiced efficiency. Horses move silent through prepared routes. Every defender knowing their role. Cartel forces push into apparent weakness, following police. Doctrine perfectly, find themselves caught in interlocking fields of fire, facing officers who anticipated every move, like watching chess masters, Sheriff Rivera observes. They're playing checkers, you're playing 3 moves ahead. Sarah works. Through tactical updates, every sound building her battle map. Because they bought training, but missed the most important lesson. Which is? Elena asks between coordinating defenses. Police doctrine exists to be adapted, not followed blindly. Officers learn to read enemies, predict responses. These mercenaries just follow procedures. The morning battle reaches crucial phase. Cartel forces, frustrated by prepared resistance, commit more resources. Each escalation meets stronger defense. Each assault finds harder opposition. They're getting desperate. Marcus reports from medical. Taking bigger risks, suffering more casualties, losing professional discipline. Sarah nods, because their doctrine's failing. Now comes the dangerous part, when they abandon procedure entirely. The battle's tide turns at mid-morning. Cartel teams, abandoning careful doctrine, launch reckless assaults. Find themselves facing officers who anticipated emotional responses. Like training scenarios come true, Jack observes. When the suspect follows pattern exactly, then breaks pattern exactly how you expect. Deputy Torres brings critical news. State police 15 minutes out, federal response approaching, but cartels committing everything now. Of course, Sarah. responds, because they have to win before authorities arrive, making them predictable, making them vulnerable. The morning's combat reaches crescendo. Cartel forces launch desperate attacks, finding prepared defenders at every turn. Professional operators lose discipline, face disciplined officers. They're breaking, Elena reports, losing unit cohesion, abandoning tactics, turning into exactly what they started as, criminals with expensive weapons. Sarah stands in the command center, listening to victory approach, because they never understood what they were fighting. Thought money could buy police expertise. What did they miss, Marcus asks, between treating wounds. That real police experience isn't about following procedures. It's about understanding why those procedures exist, when to use them, when to adapt. The morning battle winds down as law enforcement approaches. Cartel forces retreat in growing disorder, leaving equipment and wounded behind. They'll be back, Sheriff Rivera warns. With everything they have left, this was just their first wave. Sarah nods, already planning counters. Let them come. Now they've shown us everything, their doctrine, their training, their limitations. And when they return, Marcus asks, cleaning his service weapon, they'll find officers who faced worse odds, horses who fought harder battles, and defenders who understand something they never will. What's that? That victory doesn't go to the side with better training. It goes to the side that knows when training isn't enough, when instinct and adaptation matter more than procedures. The morning sun rises over Tumbleweeds Ranch, revealing battle's cost. But defenders stand ready, because this fight's just beginning, and in this crucial phase, experience wasn't weakness. It was proof that true officers adapt beyond their training, seeing possibilities their enemies never imagine. Thunder's subtle shift alerts Sarah to movement beyond the north fence. The cartel's observers were changing positions, studying the morning's engagement. Let them look, she thought. Let them think they understand what they're facing. Tomorrow would show them exactly what it means to mistake police experience for vulnerability. Because on this piece of Arizona desert, the real strength wasn't in weapons or numbers. It was in the unbreakable bond between officers and their mounts, in the determination of those who'd sworn to protect and serve, in the courage of those who'd already faced down worse odds and emerged stronger. The next wave was coming, but Tumbleweeds Ranch stood ready, because sometimes the most dangerous opponents aren't those with the most weapons, but those with the most reasons to stand their ground, and tomorrow would prove that truth, one way or another. Dawn emerges over Tumbleweeds Ranch, revealing the full scope of victory. Federal agents process captured cartel members, while state police secure the perimeter. Sarah stands in morning light, Thunder vigilant beside her. Found Salazar's satellite phone? Deputy Torres reports. Last messages from cartel leadership. They're not happy. He's finished in their world. The morning brings waves of law enforcement. FBI evidence teams document the scene while Border Patrol tracks fleeing cartel members. Sheriff Rivera supervises as Miguel Salazar sits handcuffed in a police vehicle, his empire in ruins. Marcus works tirelessly in the medical bay. 17 wounded among our defenders. All will recover. Can't say the same for the cartel casualties. Sarah moves through the property, every sound telling victory's story. Officers help clear debris, while horses maintain vigilant patrol, combat instinct still active. Like aftermath of riot control, Jack observes, Star steady beside him. When the fighting stops, but tension remains. Bodies remember combat too well. Elena coordinates from command center, organizing recovery efforts. Communities respond. local ranchers bringing supplies, equipment, even businesses that stayed neutral are helping now. The morning reveals unexpected strength. Officers work together. Police experience showing in efficient cleanup. Horses assist search teams. Tactical training proving valuable in aftermath. They don't understand what they achieved, Sheriff Rivera notes, watching officers work. Not just defeating a cartel, showing what law enforcement can really do when they stand together. Sarah stands perfectly still, reading victory's cost through sound. Because they remembered something important, something cartels never learn. What's that? Elena asks between treating wounds. That real strength isn't in weapons or money. It's in having something worth fighting for, worth standing together to protect. The day brings more supporters. Local families arrive with food and supplies. Police groups send assistance teams. Even distant departments offer support. Word spreading, Elena reports from observation. Story hitting national news. Police ranch defeats cartel, making headlines everywhere. Deputy Torres brings interesting news. County Commissioner's office in chaos. Corruption investigation expanding. More officials confessing cartel connections. Sarah nods, fingers moving over damage reports. Because they saw what happened to Salazar, saw what choosing the wrong side means. The ranch's defenders process victory differently. Some officers talk quietly about battles past and present. Others work silently, letting action speak. Horses maintain protective watch, sensing lingering tension. Medical supplies arriving, Marcus announces. Every police clinic in 3 states sending help. Network stronger than ever. Because they saw what's possible, Sarah responds. Saw what happens when law enforcement stands together. When horses remember their training, when defenders find purpose again. The afternoon reveals deeper impact. Law enforcement discovers extensive cartel infrastructure, safe houses, surveillance posts, corruption networks, all exposed by the battle's aftermath, like dominoes falling, Sheriff Rivera observes. 1. Victory here exposing weaknesses everywhere, making other cartels nervous. Evening brings moment of reflection. Defenders gather in the main house, victory's cost visible in bandages and tired faces. But something else shows too. Pride, purpose, belonging. Today proved something important, Sarah tells her team, Thunder steady beside her. Something cartels never understand. What's that? A young officer asks. That experience isn't weakness. That service doesn't end with retirement. That finding purpose again means finding strength they can't break. The stars emerge over battle-scarred buildings. But on Tumbleweeds Ranch, defenders stand proud. Because today's victory taught something crucial about facing cartels. Against officers who'd found purpose again. Against horses who'd never lost faith. Against a mounted sergeant who saw clearer than her enemies. No amount of money or violence could prevail. The real triumph wasn't in defeating enemies. It was in proving that law enforcement could become strongest, exactly because they'd learned to adapt, to overcome, to stand together, and in that truth, future victories were already assured. This story of courage, determination, and the unbreakable bond between law enforcement officers and their horses has touched many hearts. If you've been moved by their fight for justice and want to hear more incredible tales of bravery and triumph against overwhelming odds, make sure you're subscribed to our channel. We've got 2 more amazing stories coming up that you won't want to miss. Just click to watch and don't forget to hit that subscribe button. It means the world to us. Together we'll keep sharing these powerful stories of heroes who never back down.